standing here next to Mike, who's a designer on God of War, Ghosts of Sparta. The second God of War game on PSP, and you also worked on the first one. Can you tell us a little bit about the differences between this game and the first one?
Well, after Chains of Olympus, we really looked hard at what people liked and didn't like and how we thought we could improve upon it. And we've gone into Ghosts of Sparta with the attitude that everything has to be bigger, badder, and just more in epic nature. And really, we ramped up everything from the graphical quality to the number of enemies, the big bosses. The combat maneuvers are much deeper now with Kratos, and everything really has been drastically improved.
So, how close do you work together with the team in Santa Monica that create the PS3 title?
We work closely with Sony Santa Monica. They provide us feedback constantly. There's a good back and forth between us, and we've really benefited greatly from their advice and their feedback.
So how does the story fit into the God of War mythos?
So God of War Ghosts of Sparta takes place after God of War 1 and before God of War 2. So after Kratos has ascended to the God of War status after 1, he has to go through this really personal kind of journey to get to where he is in the beginning of 2, which is just really enraged and ready to confront his father at the end of 2. So what we're telling is a really a personal character story of Kratos, and it'll bridge that gap between both 1 and 2.
So it feels like we're at the sort of the end of the line for the PSP titles, the final batch, and perhaps we'll get a new PSP at one point. But do you feel that there's still enough drive in the PSP these days?
Well, we've been working on the PSP now for 6 years or so, I believe, with Daxter, God of War, Chains of Olympus, and now Ghosts of Sparta. And with this game, we really think that PSP owners, are going to pick up this and be stunned at how much we've squeezed out of this system. And we really think we've pushed this to its entire limit. And the quality of the work on Ghosts of Sparta is stunning on the PSP, and we think we've really gotten it to the maximum.
Is that a benefit of having worked on so many titles on the PSP that you know what you're doing now? Is it a faster process to make a game these days?
Well, it's always challenging because we always want to one-up ourselves. We really, our philosophy is not to make the greatest PSP game, but to make the greatest game we can possible. And that extends to Ghosts of Sparta. If you can tell, we want to make an excellent game, and the fact that it's on a PSP even makes it better because you can take it on the go. Certainly we've learned lessons from each and every game that we worked on, with Ghosts of Sparta not being an exception.
Do you have a favorite moment in the game that you could describe, as visceral as possible?
Well, there's a great moment we're showing at E3 here where you fight this big sea monster named Scylla, and she kind of emerges from the water with these big tentacles coming out of her stomach and emitting little spiders, and Kratos just looking up at this grand creature and saying, I'm ready to take it out, let's do this, is really a fantastic moment in our demo. And people have really responded well to it also. And just the scale, the Scylla, we say she's big enough to eat our first boss in Chains of Olympus whole. And we've really propagated that across the entire game, where there's really just big moments across the whole thing to create the complete package.
Does Kratos have any new moves or weapons that he'll explore in the game?
He has a lot of new moves. In fact, the couple we're showing off at E3, one being the spear and shield weapon, which kind of harkens back to his old, Spartan army days, where he takes out this large shield, and he can now walk and block at the same time as a defensive maneuver. And he can also throw and chuck the spears at any enemy as well, amongst many other things. We're also showing something called the Hyperion Charge, which is this rush maneuver. He can rush on enemies and mount them and start beating them up like MMA style and throw them at other enemies. And
ground and pound.
Indeed, ground and pound. And we're also showing off the Eye of Atlantis, which is this large, brass kind of opulent eye that he can emit this really violent electrical pulse from, and it can propagate also across the multiple enemies. So those are 3 things we're showing here, and there's certainly plenty more that we'll reveal in the future.
And when is the game coming out?
It has yet to be announced. Hopefully we'll be able to share that information pretty soon.
All right. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.